Okay, so buckle up for this one. We're diving into a case that's going to stay with you. Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Norris, the Toolbox Killers. And as we get into it, you'll understand why that name is, well, it's going to make sense. We're looking at excerpts from this Wikipedia article, laying it all out. Their pasts, their crimes, how it all went down.
What gets me about this case is, like, how two messed up people can find each other and together become even more,
Oh, absolutely. Like exponentially more terrifying.
right. It's like 1 + 1 = a nightmare.
Exactly. So to get how it got this bad, we got to rewind, right? Back to the beginning. Let's start with Bittaker. Talk about a rough start, unwanted by his parents, bounced around orphanages, foster homes. You know that can't be good for a kid.
No, not at all. That lack of stability, that void, it can really warp how someone sees the world, right? Like they crave control later on because of it.
And Bittaker, he seemed to crave it from day one. Even as a kid, he was manipulative. Petty theft at first, then bam, more serious stuff. Even ended up in California Youth Authority. But here's the kicker. The guy was smart. Like crazy smart. 138 IQ.
It's scary how intelligence doesn't equal good decisions, Sometimes it's almost worse they know how to use it to hurt, to exploit.
Right. It's chilling. And the violence, it was there early on. Before Norris even entered the picture, he stabbed a supermarket employee just for catching him shoplifting.
See, that's not just a mistake. That's a jut intense. Like that escalation. Huge red flag. You can almost see where things are headed.
Absolutely. And sadly, Norris's story, it's got its own darkness. Illegitimate child. Huge stigma back then. On top of that, neglected, abused, the whole 9 yards in the foster care system.
It's tragic how often that's the case, that early trauma. It comes out in awful ways sometimes. For him, it seemed like anger, difficulty connecting with people. He even got diagnosed with schizoid personality disorder later on. Makes relationships really hard.
Yeah, and instead of finding a way to deal with all that, his life just spiraled, Navy, Vietnam didn't see combat, though, but after discharge, bam, assaults on women, in and out of trouble. It's like he was hitting straight for Bittaker.
Makes you think, how much of our path is set in stone and how much is choice, right? Because at some point, they both chose a very, very dark road.
And that road, it led them straight to California Men's Colony. Talk about a breeding ground for evil. You got two deeply disturbed guys locked up, time on their hands, and instead of getting better, they bond over the worst possible thing, hurting women.
And that's where things shift, It's one thing to have messed up thoughts alone. It's another to have someone say, yeah, me too.
They fed off each other, spent hours, days even, planning out their crimes. And I don't mean just thinking about it. They were strategizing, like a blueprint for horror. Abduction, torture, murder, the whole thing.
It's that planning, that coldness gets under your skin. Like they were already detached from what it meant,
Detached is putting it lightly. And keep in mind, this is all while they're still behind bars, free to walk around, and they're already plotting this stuff.
And as we'll hear, that freedom, it had some truly awful consequences.
And it didn't take long after Bittaker was out, 78, for things to take a very dark turn. He settled in Burbank, got a job even. Seemed almost normal, right?
It's creepy, right? Like blending in, all that darkness underneath.
Yeah.
Just shows you never know.
For sure. He even used that whole normal guy act to buy a van. Silver gray, 77 GMC Vandura. Norris actually helped, even from prison. But this wasn't just any van.
Oh, they knew what they wanted. The size, no windows on one side, big sliding door. It's perfect. A torture chamber on wheels, basically.
They even called it Murder Mac, which I gotta say, it gives me chills just saying it.
Yeah, Murder Mac. Like, they're trying to make a joke of it, but here's the thing. Even before they grabbed their first victim, they spent months, literally months, practicing.
The practice runs? Picking up hitchhikers? They weren't hurting them then, right?
No, not according to what we know. They'd pick women up, use it to get better at it, the whole abduction, like a routine for them.
That's chilling.
It is. And then, June of 79, they found Lucinda Schaefer, 16 years old, walking in Redondo Beach, just snatched up. It was brutal. Strangled, dumped in the mountain.
Awful. And the first one, it showed how different they were, right? Norris hesitated.
He did. Couldn't go through with strangling her. Said something in her eyes stopped him.
But Bittaker.
Bittaker didn't even flinch. Took over, did it himself, showed just how cruel he could be, and it got worse. Weeks later, Andrea Hall, 18, hitchhiking.
Didn't she get away once?
She did. Can you imagine? But they saw her again, and that time she fought like hell, really, but they got her.
Yeah.
Mountains, torture, it went on and on. Bittaker especially seemed to, enjoy her terror, making her beg.
God. It's hard to even think about. Was there ever a moment, any sign, that they felt bad doing this. Any humanity at all.
There's this detail, right? While Norris is hurting Andrea Hall, he thinks headlights are coming.
For a second, it's like reality set in. But they didn't stop.
It's like they were too far gone, even the thought of getting caught.
Couldn't break through, yeah. And it didn't stop there. September, they grabbed 2 girls, bus stop, Jackie Gilliam, 15, Jacqueline Lamp, only 13.
Oh, God, those poor kids. Just starting their lives.
It's unimaginable what must have been going through their heads trapped like that. They kept them for 2 days. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
Tortured them. Bittaker made them pose for pictures, even recorded himself. And during it, he's telling Jackie to pretend to be his cousin, like it's some kind of...
Sick game. It's beyond sick. Right out of his mind. And then after 2 days, he strangles them both. Before killing Jacqueline, he yells at her, "You wanted to stay a virgin. Now you can die a virgin." Like it meant something, you know? The control. The cruelty.
And as if it couldn't get worse, their last victim, Shirley Ledford, 16, Halloween night. That's when the Toolbox Killer's name, it becomes horrifyingly clear.
Pliers, a sledgehammer. They even recorded it, that tape of Shirley Ledford. There are no words.
Even cops who thought they'd heard it all were messed up by that tape. Her screams, begging for her life.
Yeah.
And Bittaker, he's just talking like it's normal.
The prosecutor said, and I quote, "For those of you who do not know what hell is like, you will find out." And you know, he was right. That's what it was.
And as awful as all that is, it's kind of hard to believe, but those recordings, that pure evil, it's actually what helped catch them.
Yeah, ironic, isn't it? The control they wanted, the proof of what they did, it backfired. Norris, maybe guilt got to him, maybe he was scared, but he told someone. A guy he met in prison, Joseph Jackson.
Just spilled it, huh?
The whole thing, yeah. Especially about Shirley Ledford. Luckily, Jackson's lawyer, he knew what to do, told him to go to the cops.
And that was that.
November 79, they're arrested. The confession was huge, but there was more. Those photos Bittaker took, remember? Cops found them. Plus the tools, the van, everything, like they were keeping souvenirs.
And Norris, he cracked, right? When he saw they knew everything.
Plea deal. Testified against Bittaker to save himself. It happens a lot. You know, one of them sees a way out and throws the other one under the bus.
Even with something this horrible, self-preservation wins out, I guess. So what about Bittaker once they had him?
Cold the whole time. No remorse, nothing. Even tried to say it was Norris. He was just there.
But the evidence.
Oh, they had him dead to rights. Guilty on all counts. 5 murders. Death penalty.
Justice, at least.
Right. But here's the thing. Bittaker, he spent decades on death row. Died just last year. But even in prison, that need to control things, it never went away. Lawsuits all the time. Anything to stir things up.
Like some things just don't change.
And they called him Pliers on death row. Says it all, doesn't it? Norris always said he was scared of Bittaker, went along because he had to. He died this past February in prison as well.
Hard to know what to believe with all that.
You got that right. From everything we know, they were both in it up to their necks. Got off on it even. But it makes you wonder, what makes people this way? The need for power, hating women, or was it something darker? We may never really have those answers.
And that's what gets me, you know. Those pictures. Hundreds of them. Young women, most of them, no idea. Makes you think, how many more victims are out there that we don't even know about? How many lives did they really ruin? It's terrifying. And it makes you realize how much darkness is hidden out there, how close it can be. And on that note,
thank you for joining us for another deep dive. It's heavy stuff, but these stories need to be told. Until next time, stay curious, but stay safe out there.